and Debbie Hightower is our recording secretary. Our rules of procedure are as follows. Notice of this hearing has been published. Copies of today's agenda are located on the table in front of us. You are welcome to come down and pick one up. The cases on the consent agenda will be heard first. Consent cases have either been recommended for layover, have already been heard, or are perceived by the planning board to be non-controversial, therefore will be read and voted on without the opportunity for your testimony. If you wish to testify, you may remove the case from the consent agenda. When each consent case is read, I will ask if anyone wants the case removed. If you do, please stand up and say so, and the case will be removed. The case will then be heard in the order in which it appears on the regular agenda after we go through the consent cases. When the case is heard, you will have the opportunity to come to the podium, clearly state your name and address, and give your testimony at that time. When hearing cases on the regular agenda, the board will first hear from the applicant. After the applicant states their case, we will hear from the proponents, then we will hear from the opponents. After both sides are heard, the public hearing will be closed and no additional testimony will be permitted unless a board member requests additional information. When at the podium, please clearly state your name, address, and whom you are representing for the record. Your testimony is very important to us. In the interest of time and courtesy to others, please be short and to the point. We will try to limit each case to 10 minutes. Those directly involved in the case, please speak first. We request that large groups select a spokesperson to represent that group, therefore eliminating repetitive testimony. When giving testimony, please provide new information and try not to repeat what has previously been said. We do ask that all speakers and others be treated with courtesy and with respect. In that regard, please remain silent while seated and please turn off your cell phones. Our decision to approve, deny, or continue a case made here today will be forwarded to the City Council for another public hearing and final disposition by the City Council. Conditional use permits are an exception to this rule. The board's decision made here today on conditional use permits are final and not forwarded to the City Council. Lastly, upon the advice of the Law Department, all communications to the board members from attorneys or other interested parties should be transmitted through the Planning Department so that they are made a part of the public record. The department will then transmit all that information to the board as well as to the rest of the public. A current copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act can be found in a white binder in this room. There are no changes to the consent agenda, so I'm going to get started with the reading of the consent cases. Remember, I'll ask if you want it removed. If so, just stand up and say so and we'll remove it. Agenda item number 3, case C10-21-165, C12-21-166. Applicant Ross K. Pearson. It is on for approval. Request preliminary plat approval of F Street Crossing, a subdivision outside city limits with rezoning from AG to DR, R4 and MU. This was laid over from our July meeting. Location, southeast of 204th and F Street. Anyone wish to have this removed? Okay, seeing none. Agenda item number 9, case C3-22-35. Applicant, Planning Department on behalf of the City of Omaha. It is on for approval. Request, approval of the disposition of city-owned property to an interested party. Location, 2301 North 16th Street. Does anyone wish to have this removed? Okay, seeing none. Agenda item number 10, case C3-22-54. Applicant, Planning Department on behalf of the City of Omaha. It is on for approval. Request approval of the disposition of city-owned property to an interested party location 2521 and 2525 Blondo Street. Does anyone wish to have this removed? Okay, seeing none. Agenda item number 12, case C12-22-39. Applicant, Skyline Ridge Estates, LLC. It is on for approval. Request preliminary and final plat approval of Serenity Estates Replat 1, a minor plat outside city limits. Portions of the property are located within the floodway overlay district. Location, southwest of Skyline Drive and Stanford Circle. Anyone wish to have this removed? Okay, seeing none. Agenda item number 13, case C12-22-40, applicant Kelly Merriweather. It is on for approval. Request preliminary and final plat approval of Merriweather Acres, a minor plat outside city limits with a waiver to section 5399 sidewalks. Property is located within the flood fringe overlay district. Location 1221 North 252nd Street. Does anyone wish to have this removed? Okay, seeing none. Agenda item number 14, case C12-22-41, applicant 18 Howard Owner LLC. It is on for approval. Request preliminary and final plat approval of Bauhaus, a minor plat outside city limits with, inside city limits. Property is located within an ACI area of civic importance overlay district. Location, southwest of 18th and Howard Street. Anyone wish to have this removed? Okay, seeing none. Agenda item number 16, case C10-22-46, C12-22-48, applicant 192 Honeysuckle LLC. It is on for layover. Request preliminary and final plat approval of Lincoln Station, a minor plat inside city limits with rezoning from AG to DR and R6. Portions of the property are located within the flood fringe and floodway overlay district. Location, northwest of 192nd Street and Honeysuckle Drive. Does anyone wish to have this removed? You do? Okay. It will be removed. Agenda item number 16. And we'll pull 23 off that also, because those were going to be read together. Okay. Continuing on, agenda item number 17, case C10-22-49, C12-22-50, applicant Kevin Hansen. It is on for approval. Request preliminary and final plat approval of Wingate Ranch Replat 1, a minor plat outside city limits with rezoning from DR and R3 to DR and R3. Location, northwest of 212th and Hickory Streets. Does anyone wish to have this removed? Okay, seeing none. Agenda item number 18, case C10-22-51, applicant Michelle Weatherly. It is on for approval. Request rezoning from CC and GC to CC. Portions of the property are located within the flood fringe overlay district. Location 8288 Haskell Street. Anyone wish to have this removed? Okay, seeing none. I apologize in advance if I ruin this person's name. Agenda item number 19, case C10-22-52, applicant Yaya Gayami. It is on for approval. Request rezoning from R435 to R5. Location 6257 Sprague Street. Does anyone wish to have this removed? Okay, seeing none. Agenda item number 20, case C10-22-53, applicant Michael Maroney, Omaha Economic Development Corporation. It is on for approval. Request rezoning from R7 and GI to R7. Location 2411 Burdette Street. Anyone wish to have this removed? Okay, seeing none. Agenda item number 24, case C7-22-25, applicant Joshua Eveloff. It is on for approval. Request approval of a conditional use permit to allow body and fender repair services in the DS district. Property is located within an ACI area of civic importance overlay district. Location southeast of 19th and Leavenworth Street. Does anyone wish to have this removed? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion for the items that are on consent for approval?
Motion to approve cases 3, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 24.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Debbie, will you please record the vote?
Rosacker?
Yes.
Franklin?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Approved 4-0.
Okay, and the two items that we're on for layover, items 16 and 23, we're going to take those together when we're on the regular agenda, and those have both been taken off for the consent agenda. So if you were here for any of those consent cases, they've been voted on today. No further action will be taken. You are welcome to stay, or you are released to leave. It's up to you. So the first item is on the administrative meeting only, which means there will not be any opportunity for public hearing. Agenda item number 1 is case C10-21-300, C12-21-301. Applicant WDC Investments 9 LP. Request final plat approval of South Farm Replat 3, a subdivision outside city limits with a waiver to section 5399 sidewalks, along with rezoning from MU to R5 and R6. Location northwest of 144th Street and Applied Parkway. And Eric, you're up.
Yeah, so the preliminary plat of South Farm Replat 3 was before the planning board on November 3rd and ultimately approved by City Council December 21st. This final plat is in compliance with that approved preliminary plat and the master plan. There are 148 total lots, one of those being multifamily and the remainder being single family and townhome lots. There are a few small items that will need to be finalized before proceeding to City Council related to the NCE and the final plat documentation. Staff recommends approval of the waiver to section 5399 sidewalks for both sides of Street A south of Street C. Approval of the rezoning from MU to R5 and R6. Approval of the final plat subject to the 6 conditions in the report prior to forwarding to City Council.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the board? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the waiver of section 5399 sidewalks for both sides of Street A, south of Street C. Approval of the rezoning from MU to R5 and R6. And approval of the final plat subject to addressing the 6 items in the staff report prior to forwarding the request to the City Council for their final action.
We have a motion and a second. Debbie, will you please record the vote?
Moore?
Yes.
Rosacker?
Yes.
Franklin? Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Approved 4-0.
That was the only item on the administrative agenda. We'll move on to the public hearing. Agenda item number 2, case C3-22-3, applicant Planning Department on behalf of the City of Omaha, request approval of disposition of city-owned property to an interested party. This was laid over from our January meeting. Location 2610 North 28th Avenue and 2858 Ohio Street. And Autumn, there you are. I missed you. Autumn, you're up.
Sneaky. Autumn Evans, City Planning. Good afternoon. Item number 2 was laid over from January 5th meeting in regards to 2610 North 28th Ave and 2858 Ohio Street. We had 2 interested parties, and the City Planning recommends approval of working with the first interested party, as the interested party has an immediate plan to develop the sites. And I am here to answer any specific questions that you may have at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Autumn.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other proponents? Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, I'm gonna, sir, were you coming up or?
I think so.
Okay, come on up.
I don't understand all that jargon.
Are you an opponent?
Yeah, well,
Proponent.
I was
Proponent.
on a couple of teams in my life. So my name is Les Pee Wee Harrison, and I actually grew up in the neighborhood in which I'm seeking to develop over the past 20 years. Which one? Les Pee Wee Harrison, 2815 Miami, Omaha, Nebraska, 68111. All right, so the area that I'm looking at to develop, I'm trying to, my focus is, I grew up there, I'm 58 years old, And so I grew up in that area with my 10 brothers and sisters, and I saw when the highway tore everything up for the highway. So my goal has been to bring back life into that community. You have Sacred Heart, you have Harvard Kennedy, but you have no kids or families in those areas anymore. So I have secured 3 historical, not officially historical, but historical looking homes that I want to move into those areas as soon as June.
For sale,
For rent.
for rent, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Les.
Yep,
Thank you.
that's
Thank
it?
you.
Can I leave the building?
No, hang
yet.
around, we're going to vote here
Okay,
in a
that
little
sounds
bit.
Thank you.
We'll take that as a proponent. So now, are there any opponents wishing to speak? Seeing none, close public hearing. Additional comments or questions from the board?
City recommends approval.
Do we have a motion? We have a motion and a second. Debbie, will you please record the vote?
Rosacker,
Yes.
Franklin, Moore, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
approve 4-0.
Now you can leave. All right, moving on. Agenda item number 4, case C3-19-88, applicant Planning Department on behalf of the City of Omaha. Request approval of a major amendment to the 2019 Consolidated Action Plan. Location, City of Omaha and the 3-mile extraterritorial jurisdiction. And Alyssa, there you are.
Alyssa Solachik, Omaha Planning Department, and I am here to discuss a proposed amendment, a major amendment to the 2019 Annual Action Plan. The proposed amendment requests that $1.5 million in CDBG, CARES Act, CV1 funds be reallocated together for the purchase of a non-congregate shelter. And staff recommends approval of this, and I am available if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any other proponents wishing to speak? Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Additional comments or questions? Eric, did you want to add anything?
Just recommend approval.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Debbie, will you please record the vote?
Franklin? Yes. Moore?
Yes.
Rosacker?
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
approve 4-0.
Moving on, agenda item number 5, case C3-21-320, applicant Planning Department on behalf of the City of Omaha. Request approval of the 25th and Center Community Redevelopment Area and Extremely Blighted Area designation. Location, an area generally bound by Pacific Street on the north, Interstate 80 on the south, 16th Street on the east, and Interstate 480 on the west. And Don, you're presenting.
Yeah, good afternoon, Don Seaton, Omaha City Planning. With this item, the City Planning Department is asking you to approve designation or support approval of a designation of a portion of the city as a CRA, which means Community Redevelopment Area, and also that same area as an EBA, which is Extremely Blighted Area. I've got a map up for context here. Everything in the kind of purple color is existing CRA designated areas within the city of Omaha. The area we are going to focus on today basically in this gap right there. Combination of 4 census block groups. And we'll talk about the CRA designation and the EBA designation separately because they have different criteria. But I'll begin with the CRA designation. And again, we're looking at Census Tract 20, block groups 1 and 2, and Census Tract 33, block groups 1 and 2. And this map shows the study area. It's within the red boundary. You'll notice that all the way around it, the kind of salmon color is existing designated CRA areas. And indeed, some of the areas within the study area are already designated as CRA. We'll be basically recertifying those small portions of the study area. Why do we do CRA designations? It opens up the area for eligibility for redevelopment projects to take part in our TIF program, tax increment financing. We designate these areas because they have not been redeveloping very fast. They're older, maybe somewhat bedraggled areas where we want to use the TIF program to help promote redevelopment of the area. It's an economic stimulus. Why do we consider, or why would anybody want an extremely blighted area designation? Well, if it's a TIF project, an EBA designation allows a 15-year TIF term to be a 20-year TIF term, but it also provides some affordable housing advantages. Home buyers who are going to be owner occupants who buy a home within an EBA area are given a tax credit for their Nebraska income taxes. It also gives positive consideration to projects that are applying for assistance for affordable housing projects. It gives them some additional positive consideration as well. You have been provided with a study that goes into great detail on both the criteria for the EBA and the CRA. To begin with the CRA, there are two definitions in state law, definition of the term blighted and a definition of the term substandard. For this area to be designated, you must comply or meet both definitions in state law, blighted and substandard. And to make things a little more complicated, Part B, the blighted definition has a Part A and a Part B. But basically, with the CRA, your big picture is determining whether the area is eligible for CRA designation. It's an area where the buildings and the infrastructure are older and somewhat worn, and where the residential population is economically disadvantaged as compared to the rest of the city overall. Now, with the Part B of the blighted definition, there are 5 components. To be eligible, you need to meet one of the components. In this case, maybe I'll zoom out a little more. The 5 are population change, per capita income, unemployment, average age of structures, and are there subdivided platted lands that have not developed. Items 1 and 2 are no in this instance, but the per capita income on the area overall is a yes. Averaged together, the four block groups are roughly half of the city's per capita income of $33,400. The unemployment is higher than the threshold criteria for designation, and the buildings need to be 40 years old or older. Median age of the buildings in the area is closer to 80, 85, 90 years in age. So it meets it on the quantitative criteria using census data for blighted Part B. Blighted Part A and the substandard definition are more qualitative measures that look at what is the condition of the buildings in the area, what's the condition of the public infrastructure. And to measure those, we use windshield surveys. We also use Douglas County assessors' building records, where they have ratings of the building's condition. Very good, good, average, fair, poor, and worn out. In looking at the assessor's data for this particular area, we found that well over 1/3 of the buildings are below average. They're fair, poor, worn out in terms of the condition. And the windshield survey that we did pretty much confirmed that. Looking at the area, both the infrastructure and the buildings definitely showed signs of wear and tear. I'll show you some pictures related to that, if I may. Okay, this is an oblique aerial of the southern portion of the study area looking west. We have I-480, which in itself is a blighting influence, a major rail corridor. This building has a big gaping hole in the roof, abandoned grain elevator, concrete recycling. Here we see some of the crumbling infrastructure. This building is vacant and unused. That's a site for the affordable housing project that Neeraj Agarwal is proposing, which is the project that initially had planning department launch this analysis. There's that same building again. We see the condition of the infrastructure, no sidewalks, substandard infrastructure, major transmission lines, again, major transmission line, no sidewalks, really not the highest and best use of industrial land there either. You know, pedestrians on road, no sidewalk. Again, the infrastructure is substandard. Connectivity is a problem in the area as well. No outlet, pavement conditions. Anyway, long story short, the building data that we got from the assessor's office was supported also by our windshield survey. And we feel that this area definitely meets the criteria for CRA designation. Now, for the EBA designation, the criteria is a little bit different. They're both census data. They're both quantifiable, measurable census data. The two criteria are unemployment and the poverty rate. Poverty rate, the threshold is 20%. We're looking for areas that have populations that are 20% or more of the people in the area are listed as being in poverty or below the poverty line. Unemployment, we're looking at a threshold of 200% of the state unemployment rate. And in this case, 200% sets the threshold at 6.68. Well, for the overall combined study area, we have a unemployment rate of 8.31, which exceeds that 6.68 threshold, and we have an overall poverty rate of 21.8%, averaged out over those 4 block groups. So the study area also meets the criteria for extremely blighted area designation. And with that, I will tell you that we hope you'll support the designation of both CRA and EBA, and we feel that it meets the criteria. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Any other proponents wishing to speak? Seeing none, are there any opponents? Sorry, come on down, give your name and address, please.
Hello. My name is Jenny Sinowicki. I reside at 617 South 31st Street, 68105. I originally began to follow this out of concern for my family. I grew up in this area, in and around here, and I saw a family that live here, so I'll explain what my concerns are. I am speaking in opposition to how the CRA and EBA was drawn. I am in support of the original request by Neeraj's housing development, which asked for the study boundary to only go as far south as Martha Street. So it was not intended to include the south side of Martha Street, where this other residential area is. And this is where my issue is, because a separate development will benefit from this extremely blight designation, and I don't think it should apply to them, even the CRA and what it is they are doing. The city told me multiple times they didn't know about this other development when drawing the boundary. I was told more area may be included for future developments. I am concerned by that practice because this seems to be out of convenience for the city and for developments, and that further concerns me because there's a lack of protections for actual people in development law. I've been reminded multiple times by the city, community meetings are not required, but encouraged. I've been reminded multiple times that the city doesn't need to inform individuals of any blight study or development, only neighborhood associations. So essentially, a development can come through, benefit from an earlier blight study so as to not have to request one, not speak to communities, individuals not know what may happen in their own communities, completely bypass them. By the time it gets to city planning or city council, it'll have so much momentum, it's impossible to stop. This process and how it is done lacks protections for people and lacks transparency, and that is what is happening right now. The other development by Community Health Development Partners wasn't really known until an article was published by the Omaha World Herald on November 24th. Not through a community meeting, not through a neighborhood association, through an article. They have not been attempting to collaborate with community members. Instead, they've been attempting to buy over 50 affordable and livable homes in South Omaha to demolish for a for-profit campus. For individuals that don't want to leave, which could be few or more, I don't care if it's 2 people, they're going to be pushed out. So I take concern with what this designation is going to allow this development company to do. I don't think that is what extremely blight designation is intended for. I also want to reference something because it was just brought up in the blight draft report, and in one of the sections, it mentioned how Douglas County assessor rated the conditions of homes in the blight area. It stated that in the blight boundary, 62%, as was stated, of structures are considered fair, poor, worn out. I want to let you know that on the south side of Martha Street, if you only focus on Census Tract 33, over 50% of these homes are considered either good or average. 46% fair and 1% poor. So I want to make sure we are careful about how numbers are put together and formulated to paint a picture. Also in the blight report, it was said that, quote, the development of the area has also been significantly impacted by the disruptive and intrusive influences of an interstate highway. I do want to point out it was this city government that decided to put that interstate highway in this location through eminent domain, which forced people out, knocked down homes and businesses in its path, and separated this area, this neighborhood, from the rest of the community. So fast forward 60 years later, the same government is now using its intrusiveness as an argument to designate the area blight to entice development. I can get behind development that benefits the community, but I would like to see more community actually involved. I think this boundary needs to be redrawn to its original request for the affordable housing. I can get on board with that. I don't think this other development deserves CRA or TIF funding. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other opponents wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Comments, questions, just any comments or questions? Yeah, I'll bring Don up.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Don?
Don Seaton, Omaha City Planning.
So Don, she was asking about the original CRA map, or I mean, did we alter that?
If you take a look at this map here, we use census geography to determine our boundaries. We also try to, because these studies take so much time and effort, they really do take a lot of time and effort. We try to draw the boundaries such that we pull in, we don't want to designate an area and then have the property across the street come in with a request 2 weeks later. We try to draw the area big enough that we're pulling in all areas that we think may possibly redevelop. And if you look at this map here, 33 and 20, we already had portions of 20 and 33 designated. It didn't make sense to try to do just a portion, which is awkward. It'd be part of one block group and part of block group 2 to cut it off at Martha. it makes much more sense to use the entire block group. It's hard to define the boundaries otherwise, where we can use the census numbers to define the boundaries here. But again, you know, if we cut it off here, and if I would have done that, department had done that based on Neerage's request, even before we finished the study, the next development came in and was asking about this. And their development deserves the consideration for us to take a look at it and say, does this qualify or not? And again, we're not conflating the project with the designation. The projects have not submitted any applications to the city at this point. It's still very preliminary. The project that is being complained about the most has had public meetings that they are not required to have. They have reached out to the neighborhood. Maybe not as effectively as some people would like, but they have reached out in advance of making any applications. We have nothing right now. We don't have a TIF application, replatting, rezoning, master plan amendment. All those things will be coming to you. What we're talking about now is the future redevelopment of all of this area. And it's an area where development has been lagging.
Don, the public meeting that was called on January 19th, there were about 50 people there. Who called that meeting?
That's something we do as a standard practice anytime, when I say we, I mean the planning department. We do a standard practice for CRA designations. We want to have an informal neighborhood meeting to talk about what a CRA does mean and what it doesn't mean before we come to this forum. So that's, again, a meeting that's not required by state law, not required by city ordinance, but it's one we hold to get people notified up front of what's going on.
Everybody in the area was notified of that meeting?
We notify neighborhood associations.
Okay.
It's very difficult to do mass mailings, but we notify neighborhood associations within 1 mile of the boundary. In this case, I think we had about 13, 14 neighborhood associations.
Okay. Thank you, Don. Any other questions for Don?
Thanks,
Jeff,
Don.
I misunderstood. I thought you had a question, then I was going to call Don. I mean,
That's
you
all right.
had a question for Don. I'm
Thank you.
sorry
No worries.
about that.
Thanks, Don.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Any other comments or questions? Eric, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'd just reiterate, the process, as Don had stated, this is a designation for CRA and extremely blight. We are not looking at the specifics of the particulars of either project or any other projects that may come forth. Yes, city staff has met with both of these potential developers, but there's still a lot of work to do on each of those. I don't know the time frame of when an actual submittal would come forth, but Don is accurate. There would be platting, rezonings, potential master plan amendments, potential PURs. I don't know. There's a lot of items, and I don't know all the particulars of each one at this time because we're still working on those projects. So when those do come to planning board, there is required notifications as they relate to those specific items. So individual property owners are frequently notified within 300 feet, as well as potentially neighborhood associations, and it depends on what the request is on who gets notified. So I just want to make sure that's clear that, if there is a specific project, whether it's a TIF application or a platting or a rezoning, there are certain notification requirements that come along with that. Both Bridget and I were also at the public meeting with Don, and there was a lot of good conversation, opportunity for staff to answer questions about the designation. Obviously, there had been some concerns about, the development that had been mentioned by Jenny here earlier. So I would strongly encourage both developments and all parties to continue to have dialogue with the neighbors as they move forward with their development plans. That being said, staff recommends approval.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Debbie, will you please record the vote?
Moore?
Yes.
Rosacker?
Yes.
Franklin? Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Approved 4-0.
We're going to take cases 6, 11, and 21 together. Agenda item number 6, case C3-22-31, applicant, Planning Department on behalf of the City of Omaha, request approval of the Elmwood Townhomes TIF redevelopment project plan. Location, southeast of 54th and Leavenworth Street. Agenda item number 11, case C10-22-36, C12-22-38, applicant Elmwood Townhomes LLC, request preliminary and final plat approval of Elmwood Townhomes and minor plat inside city limits with the waiver to section 5384A lot depth, along with rezoning from R435, R535, and GO to R5 and GO. Location, southeast of 54th and Leavenworth Streets. And agenda item number 21, case C11-22-37, applicant Elmwood Townhomes LLC, request approval of a planned unit redevelopment overlay district. Location, southeast of 54th and Leavenworth Streets. And we'll hear from the applicant, Todd, or I think or Jay, you're going to talk first?
Please.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, city staff, I'm Jay Noddle with Noddle Companies, 2285 South 67th Street. It's nice to be here today. I'm just going to make a few general comments. So we started a residential division within our company a couple years back, and we like it. It's interesting. It's a little bit different for us, or it was when we started, and it's been very successful so far. And we really like working in this part of the city. We have a long history of working in this part of the city. And so when we had an opportunity, or we were presented with an opportunity to create a project in this location, we got pretty excited about it. Part of what is appealing, in addition to the residential piece of this, is this is a chance to work with the property owners from 52nd to 54th, from Leavenworth to about a half a block south, and sort of reimagine the whole piece, which it includes the former Woolner's building, it includes the former Max I. Walker building, and then the medical office building to the south. So the work that we've been doing, the planning we've been working through, takes into consideration what's happening in that part of the area. And just very briefly, the Woolner's, actually the medical office building, has been the home to Elmwood Pharmacy for a long time, and they're growing, as is the department that the Med Center has in that building. And so that group acquired the former Woolner's building, and they're going to, Elmwood Pharmacy is going to move there. They also acquired the former Max I. Walker building, and we're helping them work through some alternatives for food and beverage and something fun for the neighborhood right there. And then our project are the townhomes, which are to the west. Am I upside down? Am I upside down? I've always been accused of being upside down, so I'll do that. Pardon me. So the townhome project is the area outlined in red. The former Woolner's building is now labeled Elmwood Pharmacy, and the existing medical office building is here to the south. The former Max I. Walker building is right there. So our project, and the project before you today with the three different cases, is 19 townhomes. There are 3 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms each with 2-car garages. We've spent a good amount of time working with the planning department, Jed Moulton in particular, working through site planning, architecture, scale, and those kinds of things. We have met with our city council representative, Councilmember Bagley for District 3. We've had a big Zoom neighborhood association meeting. Unfortunately, it was a Zoom meeting, but we've done that. And you know, as we've gone through this, particularly with this new use type that we're involved in, we spend a fair amount of time listening and learning, and hopefully each time we come forward with a project, there's some things in the project plan that are a little bit better than things we've done before because we've listened and we've learned. So we're really excited about this. Todd Swarzik from our office can walk you through in a little more specificity some of the parts and pieces of this. I also want to mention, though, that from a pricing standpoint, we've done a project on the east side of Exarban Village that was priced right at the $400,000 range. You all might recall we're involved in a project at 38th and Dewey, which is a much higher price point. I'm happy to say that we think we're about halfway home there with sales for that project, and I don't think we have the roof on the building yet. So this is in the middle. It's closer to what we did in Exarban. There are 450,000 residents. We think that's a really good match for this neighborhood, and I think we all know that there's a lack of housing of all different types in this part of the city. Certainly there are many affordable housing projects that are popping up in and around the area. We even looked at a program that we're still learning about that maybe it could be applied here, maybe it could be applied to other projects where there's a group that can actually provide some subsidies, if you will, to sort of buy down the sales price of a residence to bring it more into, I guess, the means of more people. So in any case, I'm going to turn this over to Todd, but thank you for your time. Thank you for your consideration. We hope you'll approve the project today and the TIF request, and I'm certainly here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Jay. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Board, Todd Swarzik, 2285 South 67th Street, Omaha Noddle Companies. Wanted to just touch on a few things that Jay had talked about. So I know you see a lot of very large-scale apartment buildings at this board, and the city planning sees a lot of that. And then you see a lot of single-family houses. But what you don't see a lot of is these for-sale infill projects. And this will be our third version of that for-sale infill project type. These will be 3-bedroom, 3 baths, so we do believe that it will be appealing to some families. We also believe that UNMC is a huge driver for something like this. With all of the large apartment buildings happening around the Midtown area, those are all rental projects. We think that the area, UNMC in particular, there will be a demand for more for-sale housing in the future, especially as the next project gets going and 8,000 jobs are created. We just don't have the housing stock in the Midtown area to support something like that. And this is a step in that direction to try to meet that coming market demand, existing and coming market demand. I also wanted to point out on this project, as Jay had mentioned, we do have 2-car garages on each of them. This is the number 11 bus stop in front of the former Walner's building, now the Elmwood Pharmacy. I believe this is the second or third most utilized route in the city, the number 11 bus route, which takes you to UNMC in about 7 or 8 minutes. It also goes west to Exarban Village. And we think that that is going to be a big driver for people who want to buy in this development, that if they have an affiliation with UNMC, that it just makes sense for them to take that bus route that comes every 10 minutes in the morning and at night, also helping with UNMC's need to expand parking lots anymore. This is our site plan, so you can see we're taking access off of 54th Street. We've worked with Public Works and have a plan that meets the infill guidelines specifications from their vantage point, from the city's regulations. We've also worked with fire, meets the requirements of the fire department. Again, on the back sides are the two-car units. There will be a front flex space that can be used as a bedroom or office space. And then we have 2 bedrooms. We have the living area on the 2nd floor and then 2 bedrooms on the 3rd floor. We worked a lot and thought a lot about the design of this project. And this is a view looking southeast from the intersection of 54th and Leavenworth. So you're on Leavenworth right now. One of the things that we wanted to respect when we're building this project is the surrounding neighborhood. This is a modern interpretation of some of the surrounding neighborhood. Now, the Exarban Elmwood neighborhood is huge geographically. It's a very big neighborhood, and there are different areas throughout that neighborhood. There might be pockets of brick houses. There might be pockets of sided housing, lap siding housing. Well, this particular street, we looked at, and the housing stock on this block of this street, with the exception of 2 brick homes, it is 8 houses that are lap siding, and 4 of those, 4.5, because one of the houses is half brick, half lap siding, 4.5 of those houses are white. 2 brick houses, and then a couple of colorful houses also included on that block. So when we looked at the architecture of our site, we wanted to emulate that type of siding. So we have the lap siding on the top. This is not a metal panel, which we really didn't do a good job of explaining at our neighborhood meeting, but this is board and batten lap siding on the halfway through the 2nd and 3rd floor. The base of the building, this is facing Leavenworth, will be brick. We have a modern interpretation of the pitched roof. We did not choose to go with flat roofs. We thought that would be much more out of character with the surrounding neighborhood. And then again, on the base level, we have quite a bit of brick on this project. We also have incorporated 1st and 2nd floor porches on each of these. So this is the Leavenworth side. When we move over to the 54th Street side, going into the neighborhood, there are 5 units facing 54th Street. And we lighten the color by going with a white, again, because of the fact that 4 out of the 9 houses on the block are white, so it is a dominant color. We also included the pitched roofs again, and then the front stoops and 2nd floor front sort of terraces, which we think will really encourage people to be out talking to their neighbors. It'll be a lively street frontage. We are going to replace and repair all of the sort of non-existent landscaping along 54th. We'll redo all the sidewalks along 54th and Leavenworth Street, plant trees. It'll be a much more walkable area, especially as we try to get sort of a food and beverage user in that former Maxi Walker space that the neighborhood can really be a part, enjoy being a part of. So that's our development. We think it's a great example of this missing middle that has a lot of sort of people behind it right now. It's in between that big apartment complex and a single family home, probably more toward the single family home. They're fee simple lots, so they're very easy to finance from a buyer's perspective. They can go get a regular mortgage just like a single family home. I know Don is going to talk a little bit about our TIF request, and one thing that I wanted to hit on about that, 3 houses along Leavenworth Street that are part of this project are vacant right now, these 3, and there are 2 duplexes to the south. Those 2 duplexes do have tenants in them. We have been working with those tenants prior to even the sale of the land, and we are committed to help those tenants find housing during this time of when the buildings will be demolished, which won't be until May or June at the earliest. But we have been working with them. We're committed to continuing to work with them, and we are committed to picking up some of those expenses associated with moving. And we have had contact with all of them. So that is not something that we are taking lightly, and we do want to find adequate housing for the people that will need to move once this development starts. So if you have any questions, I would take those now. And thank you.
Just on your last point about the people living in those duplexes, I think, those are duplexes, are they? Or-
Correct. There are
Okay.
2 duplexes.
That's what I thought. When you say you're committed to helping them move, committed to paying some of their moving expenses, expand on that a little bit. What do you mean by some of the moving expenses?
Sure.
And committed to helping them?
Sure. So we have a woman in our office who has been working with the tenants on a one-on-one basis about what other options there might be in the area. As this process continues, a couple of people have already indicated that they have found a residence and are going to move fairly soon. But for people without maybe the internet savvy to find new housing, we have a staff member who is going to work with them directly. So when they call, and there's been some preliminary conversations, we will look for other rental housing in the area at a comparable price of what they're paying right now and try to find that for them. Additionally, we will engage with moving companies if we're asked to help in that part of it and pay for those moving expenses to a new location for those people. I also should mention that we do have deposits back from the previous landlord that will be given back to the tenants.
All right, thank you, Todd. Don, you were going to come up and talk about the TIF?
Yeah, Don Seaton, Omaha City Planning, and I'm going to be very, very brief because Todd covered most everything. I would note on the displacement of tenants, this project is going further than any other project we've had as far as their assistance for relocation. The one thing we really try to avoid is where tenants on a month-to-month basis gets a surprise 30-day notice and you're out in 30 days and they had no idea anything was coming. So we do appreciate what Noddle Company is doing there. Basically, you know all about the project. I don't need to repeat it, what I have in my notes, other than to say it's about an $8.6 million investment in the neighborhood. It's the total project cost. They're requesting $1,538,199 in TIF support. This project complies with our master plan. It meets the criteria of the TIF program, and we ask for your approval.
Okay, thank you. Any other proponents wishing to speak? Name and address, sir, please.
I'm Avery Schwer, 6454 Woolworth Avenue. I'm a huge supporter of this Noddle development. Noddle came into our neighborhood years ago when we had an abandoned racetrack area, stuck a huge investment in there, high risk, went through a tough economy at the time, hung in there, and now we got Exarban Village. Now we've got something it's 53rd, 54th, and Leavenworth. That area is, you know, as far as it's been described with, you know, J. Coco's and that moving out of there and things mixing up. And now they're coming in there and they're investing in our neighborhood. They're going to put in 19 housing units, average price over $400,000. Think of the tax revenue. Think of the boost to you know, as far as what's going on in that area. It's incredible. There was mention about the tenant. The tenant in our neighborhood meeting, whose name was Aaron, he said that his own landlord, the people that, you know, people that owned their duplex, has not been in touch with him. But Noddle Development has. Noddle Development has been there to help him. I was, you know, as far as blown over by that. Just think of the humanity and compassion there, working with tenants in a duplex where their own original landlord hasn't even contacted them. But they're going to help them out. But Noddle Development's going to help them out. The Noddle Development is an edgy development. It's fun. I like it. It's funky town. when the neighbors were talking about different design improvements, there was a lot of, recommendations with regard to, let's say, shutters or more brick, this type of thing. And one of the comments that come into the chat thing with the Zoom meeting, it was, come on, guys, it's 2022, not 1920. And so we had that type of thing back and forth. So there's always concern whenever you do a design like this. Years ago, I built a house that had a standing seam steel roof. This is in Exarban. I still have the house. I live in there. And when I was showing the design, it says, you're putting a steel roof on a residential house? Well, I've had loads of people through that house. It's a LEED Platinum house, and never complained about the design. Was it edgy? Was it, no shutters, standing steel roof, and it was a situation where initially there was concern. People adopted it. They like it. They like edgy. Nodal Development knows their market. They know what they're doing there. This is going to be a great, as far as really a great addition to our neighborhood at a time when we need it right there. And I just really, thank them and appreciate what they do for our neighborhood. It makes all the difference in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Avery. Thanks for coming down, Bruce. Any other proponents?
Hi, my name's Corinne Wardian with Omaha by Design at 618 South 11th Street. I'm here to say a few words of support of the proposed Elmwood Townhomes development at 54th and Leavenworth Street. At Omaha by Design, we believe this development to be a good example of the missing middle housing that helps provide a broadly beneficial and appropriate density to our urban core. This added housing density in a walkable area with direct access to public transit will add to our city's vibrancy and further promote a healthy, sustainable neighborhood. The area of 54th and Leavenworth sits along what was once a historic streetcar line. Its history has always been mixed use in character and is reflected in the variety of housing types and clusters of small businesses. While we have seen businesses come and go over time, the added density provided by the Elmwood Townhomes will help the area's small businesses flourish. We at Omaha by Design have a history of supporting sensitively designed infill development such as this. It will make efficient use of existing infrastructure while enhancing the pedestrian experience within the neighborhood. We also note the development is projected to bring in 12 times the value in terms of tax revenue, and in doing so will better support city services and benefit all residents. Even long-established neighborhoods have the natural need for evolution in housing. What should be apparent to all is the growing need for housing in the urban core. We support compatible infill housing, especially when located near current transit lines and historic commercial districts. We encourage continued collaboration between the city, the developers, and surrounding neighbors. Thank you for your time and consideration of our support.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, are there any opponents?
My name is Jen Bauer. My address is 5501 Leavenworth Street, Omaha, Nebraska. I'm in a little bit of a quandary. I am not in opposition of this development as it is. For the neighborhood. I am in opposition of this for me as a resident. So I'm sure you all received the letter that we wrote from the Exarban Elmwood Park Neighborhood Association. We look forward to infill and we look forward to development. We've worked very closely as a board, which Avery is also on, to work with, Nodal companies and Todd to build and grow Exarban. It's a great neighborhood. What I have issue with are basically some housekeeping items that I'm a little concerned about. When I look at the elevations that were proposed to us, and I'm going to use, well, I guess I can't use. Can you do that for me? Thanks, Todd. Okay, so my home is right here. and my back deck and entertainment area is here. And I have perfect line of sight to the Elmwood Tower. Elmwood Tower has been there for, I don't know, probably 50, 60 years, right? There's not a problem with that. What I have issue with is the way that the elevation was presented to us as residents as being more level on the 51st Street side, right? So if my backyard is looking towards Leavenworth or towards the east, I'm going to be looking directly at these stark white, homogeneous townhomes, okay? We talk about missing middle. There are 19 3-bedroom, 3-bath units. Why could we not do different sizes? 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1-bedroom, studios. If we're on a major bus line, which we are, it's right, I have a stop right in front of my house, why are we offering 2-car garage spaces and not utilizing that space for something else? We're also here today to discuss the zoning changes for the Nebraska Medicine Clinic right here, from a GO to a R5, all right? We have lost our walkability in this neighborhood. I no longer have a J. Coco and a Legends Coffee to go to, and that's fine. Progress is good. And I applaud the Max I Walker building, because that, I think, has opportunity. It has an outdoor space, decent-ish parking. The neighbors have somewhere to go and walk. What my concern is that if we change the zoning of what we have already had acceptable commercial use for to be more residential housing, what are we going to get in the future if I already have 19 units, 38 potential people, and 38 potential cars crowding an area where we're on a bus line trying to tout public transportation? Those are my concerns. We were told, that these would be for sale at a price point of $450,000. I had several residents call me, several neighbors call me and say, are they affordable? And I'm, what do you consider affordable? 300,000? Well, no, right? I mean, I obviously live in a place where my housing value has just shot through the roof. I mean, I could sell now and do fine. And that is going to increase when these come in. And I'm excited about that. But I'm not excited about 3-bedroom, 3-bath. No options for other size families. We talk about the next projects at UNMC, 8,000 to 9,000 jobs, right? Great opportunities. Most of these are support positions. 80% of them won't be making a wage that would support $450,000. That's the price of a condo at Midtown Crossing. The original email that came out to us said that these would be 19 market rate rental units. I just want to make sure that these letters aren't part of the official application, because it does say rental units. I've touched on the zoning of the Elmwood, and we were also on the original information that you sent to us. You had it only going to one of the duplexes, only raising one of the duplexes, and this is obviously 2. Oh, this is the elevation I was talking about. I don't know how to do this. Okay. So this decline here on 54th Street, which Todd talked about, and all the houses being yellow, this 54th Street is not highly used. 55th is the highly used street. It's got the traffic lights. It's got Washington Elementary School. My thought is this design, this development coming in, you're coming east on Leavenworth, or west up Leavenworth. You're coming from 2 lanes into 1 lane, right there at 52nd Street. And I want to know what the intent is. Do we wait for Public Works to talk about that because of that shrink of the 1 lane to 2 lane? It's right there at 54th Street. Currently, nobody turns left onto 54th on a regular basis. It would cause a little bit of danger there. And then this then becomes the face of that upper part of Exarban Elmwood Park Neighborhood Association. And I don't know why all of the architects seem to be afraid of color, but dark wood and dark brick are not the face of Leavenworth Street from 54th to Elmwood Park. It's red brick, brown brick, stucco. I have hardy board on my, cement board on my house. I took out the stucco. It's blue, it was blue. Now it's green and maroon. There's so much color, and this becomes the face of that top edge of Exarban. And I think that's about it. Again, I'm looking forward to it. I would have liked to have purchased one.
Thank you, Jen.
I can't, Todd.
We'll give Todd or Jay an opportunity
That's
to
fine.
address your concerns.
Thank you.
Any other opponents wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Jay or Todd, did either one of you want to come up and talk to some of the points that Jen made?
I'll do my best. Jay Noddle, Noddle Companies, 2285 South 67th Street. I try to get these in some semblance of order. When we look at the redevelopment of neighborhoods, and in particularly the core of our city, all housing types at all price points, whether they're able to be purchased or they're able to be rented, whether it's a month-to-month lease, or in some cases, we've seen some things recently where there's 3- and 4-year leases where things are a little bit more customized. The area needs and deserves all different types. And there are a huge number of different residential projects, either in the works or in the planning stages, and we all hope with a heck of a lot more to come in the months and years ahead. Not every project can or should it try to be everything to everyone. I think if we look at the neighborhood, there are a lot of alternatives. Our position is we want to do something that we think is viable, that we believe will be successful. And in terms of the price point, our 64th Street row houses were $400,000. And they all sold right away, right at the listed price, which only tells us one thing. It could have been more. Our Dewey Row project, which is 18 blocks or so to the east, it's priced from the high sevens up to close to $1 million. And two are under contract, a third is on the way, and they're not all the same price points. So we know it works. There's different price points for different projects. So we're pretty darn comfortable with the pricing. We think there will be a lot of different housing projects. We'd like to do more in this part of the city. We're just kind of on the lookout for some more opportunities. As it relates to the architecture, I won't assume that anyone other than those that we work with on a regular basis knows our methodology, but we do try to listen pretty darn carefully. We want things to be exciting. Did I hear funky earlier? I don't know that we want to kind of go that direction, but we want things to be exciting, and we know that neighborhoods, as they go through their lifespan, as they evolve, they become eclectic. But society is a bit eclectic, and architecture in neighborhoods should represent how things evolve. I don't think this is edgy. That's my opinion. I really don't. It's toned down from what I would define as edgy, and quite a lot of the shape has come from suggestions from the planning department, particularly with the roof lines. And in terms of the color, you have to start somewhere, and we've chosen these colors. We believe in these colors. We hope that you'll approve the project with these colors. And then, over time, people are free to paint their homes whatever color they want to paint their homes. This will have an association, and so there'll be restrictions here because the buyers expect that. But I think we're trying to be very responsible. In terms of traffic, the traffic today, or until Jay Coco and the others have begun to vacate their spaces, there's quite a bit of traffic there generated from this 52nd to 54th piece. I would submit, I think there'll be less traffic generated from what we're doing, particularly at the peak times of the day, than there was in the past. And then with respect to the medical office building, we're not doing anything with the medical office building. To my knowledge, there is no request to change the zoning of the medical office building at all. And so I don't know if there's a document somewhere that erroneously states that, but that's not part of this at all. And to my knowledge, it won't be part of anything in the near term because it's already zoned for the use that's in place, and that's not changing. So hopefully I touched on the things that were mentioned. If I missed something, please let me know.
I think she had asked about the elevations on 54th
Oh,
Street.
the elevations on 54th Street.
How high does that go? Do you know, or Todd?
So, yeah, Todd Swarzak, 2285 South 67th. Yes, so what I'm going to show you here, the elevations are 38 feet at midpoint. So the neighborhood height restriction is 35 feet, and we're asking for a 3-foot waiver on that. And the reason that we're asking for that waiver is because this product type requires, for the 2-car garages, you have to do those on the main floor. And then you have 2 floors of living on top of that. So the houses across the street, this will step down as it goes down the street. It's not going to be at the same elevation. The top unit's not going to be at the same elevation as the farthest south unit. They'll come down the street. If you take a look at so Jen would be looking at the backyards of these buildings, and our development would be on the right-hand side. So these are built up on a hill. Ours the grade will be flattened and they'll go down the hill. So our height on the top of our buildings is actually only going to be about 5 to 10 feet higher than the houses across the street. And the mention of the stark white, kind of the comment made there, again, I would point out that there are on this particular block, 4 out of 9 houses are that white color. We also will have tree plantings in front of it. So Elmwood Tower, I think, is like 20-some stories tall. That view is not going to be obstructed by this at all.
Todd, is that currently on those spots right there on 54, those duplexes, are those 2 stories?
Yeah, those are 2 stories. I would estimate that their midpoint on the roofs of those are probably about 12 feet, less than ours. Yeah.
Thank you.
Todd, just to answer all of Jen's questions, she was talking about why only 3-bedroom, 3-bath units, why not smaller units, and why the 2-car garages when you're on this transportation.
Well, yeah, Jay, if you'd like to.
Leavenworth there.
I'd like to say, though, that it's not really, it's flex space. So it can be a 2-bedroom if you would like it with a home office. That 3rd bedroom is an option. You can convert that ground floor into the 3rd bedroom. So they're actually 2 to 3 bedrooms if you wanted it. Secondly, the 2-car garage option, I think neighborhoods view that as a very positive design feature of these types of projects. I promise if we would have said that we would have had 1-car garages, people would have been really concerned about parking along 54th Street. So those 2-car garages we feel is a benefit to the project, and we also feel that the market right now in Omaha, although transitioning, is not out of 2 cars per household. We hope that can be the case with the bus line here, but as a product, we want to include that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think with the notes I had, I think we covered everything. Yeah, Jay, come on up. Name and address.
J.
again,
Noddle,
Jay.
2285 South 67th Street. I just want to speak to this, the question about why 3 bedrooms. We believe in this location, this is a great spot for residences that can be 3 bedrooms, or that, and if someone wants to use them as a 3-bedroom, great. If they want that 3rd bedroom for an office or a den or whatever it might be, we want to deliver that kind of space. And as far as 2-car garages are concerned, I can tell you, I wouldn't approve a project. We would not build a project, a 3-bedroom project with a 1-car garage. Not going to happen. In fact, I have difficulty in this location thinking about a 2-bedroom unit without a 2-car garage. I hope it changes. Todd mentioned the bus route, and that's great. Transit-oriented development is a big deal, and coming soon, a streetcar is a big deal. We're trying to do all kinds of things in this community to ease transit, make it more convenient and more user-friendly. But there are always going to be places where the customer and the resident is looking for off-street parking for a couple cars. Thank you.
Jay. Any additional comments or questions from the board? Eric, do we want to just take each item one at a time?
We will, yeah, I'll just kind of group them all together right now as I discuss them. So just a few points of clarification. The rezoning, it includes, so the medical clinic building will remain GO zoning. However, there's 10 feet that are being transferred from that property to the townhome unit, so only that portion is being rezoned to residential. So we have, it's R435, R535, and GO to R5 and GO. So the medical clinic will stay GO zoning. And that's only part of the plat in the rezoning. It's not part of the PUR or the TIF component. Our official city notice that we had sent out incorrectly had stated market rate rental unit, so that was staff's mistake. So apologies on that error. But yes, these are platted into individual lots for sale, and it sounds like that is fully their intention to sell the lot. So apologize on that small typo, I should say. Just want to reiterate everything that the development team had stated about density, transit, the med center. Just we have several wonderful neighborhoods in Midtown that are have these redevelopment projects, and we think this is a great example to provide for sale product and a really quality product. So we are excited about this, and we know it'll be very successful because we've seen it with other projects as well. So unless unless the board has any questions specifically, I'd probably just go through each item with a recommendation, but I think everything's been pretty much covered.
Okay, let's go with item number 6.
Item number 6, staff recommends approval.
Do we have a motion? Second. We have a motion and a second. Debbie, will you please record the vote?
Rosacker,
Yes.
Franklin. Yes. Moore. Yes. Mr. Chair,
Yes.
approved 4-0.
For agenda item 11, this is the plat and rezoning. I should mention there is a waiver of lot depth from Chapter 53 subdivision, so that is part of the recommendation. Staff recommends approval of the waiver to Section 53.84A lot depth, approval of the rezoning from R435, R535 and GO to R5 and GO, approval of the preliminary plat subject to the 15 conditions in the report, approval of the final plat subject to the conditions of preliminary plat approval, and submittal of an acceptable final subdivision agreement prior to City Council.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve waiver of section 53.84A in lot depth. Approval of rezoning from R435, R535, and GO to R5 and GO. Excuse me. Approval of preliminary plat subject to the 15 conditions in the staff report and approval of final plat subject to conditions of preliminary plat approval and submittal of an acceptable final subdivision agreement prior to forwarding to the City Council for final action.
We have a motion and a second. Debbie, will you please record the vote?
Franklin? Yes. Moore?
Yes.
Rosacker?
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Approved 4-0.
For agenda item 21, staff recommends approval of the PUR overlay district subject to submittal of acceptable final PUR plans prior to City Council.
Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the PUR overlay district subject to submittal of acceptable final PUR plans prior to forwarding to council.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please, Debbie, will you please record the vote?
Moore?
Yes.
Rosacker?
Yes.
Franklin? Yes. Mr. Chair?
Before I vote, I just wanted to say to Jay Noddle and Todd, thank you for your work that you're going to do with residents of the duplex and helping them, find new lodging and helping them with expenses. Awesome. Thank you very much for that. Yes.
Approved 4-0.
All right, we're going to take agenda items number 7, 15, and 22 together. Agenda item number 7, case C3-22-32, applicant Planning Department on behalf of the City of Omaha request approval of the View on 39th TIF redevelopment project plan, location 3902 Dodge Street. Agenda item number 15, case C10-22-42, C10-22-43, C12-22-45, applicant Woodsonia 3902 Dodge LLC. Request preliminary and final plat approval of the View on 39th, a minor plat inside city limits with rezoning from R7 and GC to TOD 2 MX, along with repeal of the ACI area of civic importance overlay district from a portion of the property. Location 3902 Dodge Street. And agenda item number 22, case C11-22-44, applicant Woodsonia 3902 Dodge LLC. Request approval of a plan unit redevelopment overlay district, location 3902 Dodge Street. And Larry, you're presenting.
I am. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Larry Jobin, 11440 West Center Road, appearing on behalf of the applicant and the developer. With me today from the developer is Mitch Holen. Also with me today is my associate Bob Griffith, who's done a lot of work on the TIF side of this deal for me. Also today with me is Brad Hike of TD2, who's the consulting engineers on this particular project, and also Larry Smith of Avant Architects, who are the architects on this particular project. So this is the general location showing kind of the surrounding area on an aerial photograph. So you've got Dodge Street here to the south, you've got 39th Street here to the east, and you have an alley here to the west. And then of course up here is Davenport Street, but that gives you kind of an idea of where this property is situated into with its surrounding properties. This is the current zoning of the property. It's outlined in black here. You've got partially R7, partially general commercial with an ACI overlay, and this is showing the kind of the zoning map of the property in relationship to the properties around the proposed development. So what you see here is the R7, kind of the east, west, north, with the GC here in red on the front part on Dodge, and then next to it CC, and you've got R3 to the north. So it's kind of a mishmash of zoning that you see in these types of areas. The lot itself right now is a little under 1 acre, but what is being proposed, and you'll see this with the site plan in a few minutes, is that we will be vacating 39th Street and also the alley to the west. And the nice part about that is we're eliminating 2 accesses onto Dodge Street. So from a safety concern, there will not be these 2 access points onto Dodge Street anymore. So all the traffic from this development will be going north on 39th Street to Davenport and then making its way either east, west, or north. So This is the site plan. This is 39th Street that's showing it being vacated, and will be a parking lot that has about 13 parking spaces in 39th Street. This is showing the alley that is vacated. It will be serve as green space that you can see here. Also, there's green space right here on the south side of the parking lot that is on 39th Street. You'll notice that there is landscaping, and we've addressed the streetscape pursuant to the Urban Design Code on the front along Dodge Street. And what you have here now with the vacation of the streets and the plat is you have about 2.84 acres of land between the vacated alley and also the vacated 39th Street with the little under an acre parcel that you had before. What's being proposed here is 136 units, multifamily units. It's a 4-story building with 1 parking garage underneath. The access to the parking garage is from the north, and I've got some elevations that I'll show you in a few minutes. As far as the studio or the unit type, unit mix, 48 studio apartments, 29 1-bedroom apartments, 31 1-bedroom plus a den, and then there's 28 2-bedrooms for a total of 136 units. Again, market rate rents. Has all the typical amenities. It has actually a rooftop deck here, and it has an open courtyard to the bottom here. There's, again, the green spaces that I shared with you, which is the alley space, and then also the space south of the parking area. And then there's a community room and a workout area, a yoga studio, etc. These are the elevations. This top one is the south elevation that's along Dodge Street that you'll see here. This is the north elevation. This is the garage area where the entrance is into the garage, and there's actually 88 parking stalls, underground parking stalls, temperature controlled underneath the building. This is the
Larry,
east.
will you slide that up just
Oh,
a
yeah,
bit,
sorry.
'cause there you
I'm
go.
looking
Now
at
we can
my
see
own deal, not looking up there. This is the east building elevation here, and this is the west elevation here. And obviously with the TIF project and with the TOD and everything else, the Urban Design Code applies, so all the material requirements are in place. This is, they're calling for brick and metal siding and glass. So it will be nicely done. This is another kind of elevation, just showing a 3D elevation looking from this would be the southeast corner looking to the northeast. So you've got the parking area here, the landscaping along Dodge Street, the rooftop deck, you can see it in the back as well. And with that, I think that, I guess there's a number of public improvements, but I don't know if that gets into the TIF aspects of it, but I'll get into that a little bit too, so you know what we're proposing there. New curb and sidewalks and street improvements. There's a new 65-foot wide cul-de-sac. Obviously, that's the parking area here, next to the parking area there. Stormwater detention, there's underground storage detention under the parking area here. And then obviously I have the green space that I shared with you earlier. New street lighting, new expanded landscaping and improved streetscape along Dodge Street. And then of course we talked about the closure of the alley as well as 39th Street, which is a safety issue with eliminating access points onto Dodge Street's a good thing. So with that, I will turn it over to Bridget as far as the TIF is concerned. I guess I will add that there were 2 neighborhood meetings on this particular project. The first one was December 14th, and there was approximately 12 people in attendance. I did not go, but my associate and also Mitch Holland were there. And then also there was a second neighborhood meeting on January 4th, and approximately 15 people were in attendance at that particular meeting. So we met with the neighbors on 2 different occasions, and we think this is a nice improvement to the Dodge streetscape as well as the neighborhood. And with that, I will turn it over to Bridget to discuss the TIF. And again, the whole team is here to answer any questions that you might have regarding this proposed development.
Yeah. Thank you, Larry.
Afternoon, Bridget Hadley, City Planning. don't have to give any pictures because Larry's done that job. So I'll just say that, so when we talk about TIF, this is one of the great examples in that this TIF redevelopment project plan is taking that vacant site. It was the former Travel Inn Hotel that was demolished in 2006, and that site has sat vacant since then. So it's been a blight upon the neighborhood, overgrown, neglected site. And as I believe you heard in the pre-planning meeting, lots of other potential developments have tried to develop the site and have been unsuccessful. So the fact that this one is coming forth is great. Market rate apartments. It supports the TOD, which supports density along the orbit line. We want to see that. The TIF eligible costs, I'll just say that are your basic and normal ones, so acquisition, site work. It also includes A&E costs or A&E fees and the phase 1 studies and lots of public improvements that Larry touched on. The amount of the TIF that is invested in this project is $3.7 million. The total project cost is about a little over $27 million. The project does comply with the TIF program, the community development law. The TIF committee has given their approval, and with that, I'd ask for your approval.
Thank you, Bridget. Any other proponents wishing to speak? Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none? Whoop, okay. Couldn't see you behind the podium there. Need your name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Jacqueline Kolakowski.
What was your first name?
Jacqueline.
Okay, thank you.
And I live at 132 North 39th Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68131. And let's see, I'm going to hopefully pop up. I don't think I can zoom it very well. I'm sorry I don't have a great picture, but this was taken yesterday.
Yeah, you're going to have to bring it down.
Maybe I can turn it around. There we go.
There you go.
Okay.
You can slide it down. There you go, right there. Perfect.
Okay. So we did have a meeting
What
on...
are we looking at? Yeah.
This is in the intersection at 40th and Davenport, North
Okay.
40th and Davenport.
All right, thank you. Looking
And
which direction? West?
This would be, I would be heading west on
Okay.
Davenport. So the intersection, basically, if I turn left from 39th Street to head west on Davenport Street, I'm unable to go straight. I have to make a right-hand turn by the castle on 40th
Yep.
and go down and make a U-turn.
I know where you're at now.
Thank
Sydney
you.
led
Thank
us
you.
all the
Oh,
way through
yeah,
that
it's a
in our
crazy one.
pre-meeting, so.
The reason why
Yeah.
I'm showing us is you can see tracks in the snow for people going straight through. People do not follow the traffic rules there. I've lived there for about 3.5 years, so not a long time, but enough to get an idea of what's going on. There's a church on 40th, North 40th Street there, who has had several accidents. And just 2 weeks ago, somebody sped along Davenport Street and wrecked into another house down the street on 41st Ave and Davenport. My concern here is the increased traffic along North 40th Street as well as the other streets, and not being able to handle the increased traffic. When we had the meeting, it was discussed that traffic would be decreased on 39th Street. I would agree from that point. From coming off of Dodge, people will not be parking to go over to Blackstone. We've had that issue. And we welcome the development. We're excited about it because it's going to be a great thing, because I've walked along that sidewalk where a lot of stuff has been overgrown and it's an eyesore for the city. But as a resident, I'm concerned. Oh, it turned off. Come on. I am concerned about this particular intersection, mostly because of safety. We're going to have more residents living in the neighborhood. We're going to have more traffic in the neighborhood. I did not know that there were 2 bedrooms. When we had the meetings, we were told that they were going to be 1 bedrooms as well as studios. So there's 102 parking spots available, including on the side. We did ask about that question as well. And I understand because it is on the transit line for the orbit, they're hoping to encourage people to ride that. But the reality of the matter is we are concerned as residents for the increased parking along our street. And I can tell you with having the Offutt Manor right next to us, we already have people parking in front of our driveway, of all things. So we're concerned about the parking. You know, I walk everywhere. You know, I love where we live. I love the neighborhood, but this picture kind of shows you part of the issue. There's no crosswalks in a major intersection. And that's one of my concerns. You can also see people with the tread mark. I was actually making a right-hand turn yesterday, and I saw those tread marks, and I saw a guy go straight right in front of me. I wish I would have gotten him, but he's down further as I pulled. So a lot of concerns about the safety on 40th and Davenport. There is really no good place to cross there, and there's no crosswalks. There's just none. And then when people are actually on the other side of it by the church to cross over, there's no crosswalk going across 40th Street as well. We brought this up at the meeting on January 4th, and I really appreciate Councilman Bagley being there to listen to our concerns. And we vocalized these concerns as well. And the apartment, Woodsonia, we asked those questions, and they said that that wasn't their concern, that that would be something that we would have to work with Public Works. So concern 1 is public safety with increased traffic. And I also talked to Woodsonia. Woodsonia said there wouldn't be any increased traffic, but with 102 new units, with the possibility of some of those units having 2 or more people in them, there will be increased traffic. There will also be, you know, if they would have been 1 bedroom and studios, I could see maybe a 1-to-1 ratio of cars. But now that I know that there's going to be some 2 bedrooms involved in there, there's a concern that there may be 2 cars. I mean, this is Omaha. We want to encourage people to use different modes of transportation, but we're not there yet. Okay. So, and the other concern, besides the safety on Dodge and Davenport, or not Dodge and Davenport, I'm sorry, North 40th and Davenport, is also the 40th and Dodge intersection. People do cross at 39th Street, all right? People don't want to walk down to 40th Street to cross. I do. I'm too afraid. I got hit by a car as a pedestrian. And I was in bed for 6.5 weeks. Luckily, it wasn't here in Omaha, but that changes your perspective on safety. As a pedestrian, I want to know that I'm going to be safe crossing over the road. And the reality of the matter is people park from Blackstone who go over and visit Park. The overflow parks on our side. And then they just run across the street wherever. So it's really important that we consider that, especially the crossing at 39th and Dodge. People will do that. On the other side of it, we also have traffic from the castle, Jocelyn Castle. And people need to be routed to park where the Jocelyn Castle parking area is. They don't. So there's that issue as well. The buses park along Davenport Street. So if there's a bus stop, they park right blocking Davenport, and that area of Davenport around 39th Street is narrow and brick. So there are a lot of issues that are concerning, and lastly, it's a little bit about the aesthetics of the building. In the urban planning, they talk about making sure that the complex blends with the neighborhood. Our neighborhood is old. There is one newer building that was built in the 1960s, but other than that, you've got historic homes there that were built anywhere between 1892 and 1913. And so I ask that they may consider blending, at least by colors and accents, blending their apartment complex a little bit more with the aesthetics of where we live.
Okay.
And I
Is that
think,
it, Jacqueline?
well, yeah, I believe so. Yeah,
Okay.
those are my concerns.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming down. Any other opponents wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Larry?
Yes.
Sounds like we got a lot of traffic concerns. Would you like Ryan Haas to come up from Public Works, or do you want to handle this?
I can handle part of it, and then
Okay.
Ryan can tell me if he disagrees or if he has something to add. How about that?
That'll work.
Or agrees, for that matter.
Yep.
Larry Jobin, 11440 West Center Road, appearing on behalf of the applicant. What I would say, and I think at the neighborhood meeting, I wasn't there, but my understanding is the concern was really this intersection here at 40th and Davenport. The signage, I believe, is a right turn only, so you're not supposed to go straight and you're not supposed to go south as you're heading west on Davenport Street. So everyone is supposed to go north. The alternative is that you would make a right-hand turn and go east and come down 38th Avenue and make your entrance onto Dodge Street. So
38th and Dodge, that's a signaled, no, not
No,
38th. Okay.
39th is vacated. This would be 38th, and I don't believe 38th is signaled
Got to
either.
go to another
that?
block.
Yeah, this is 38th. 39th is what we're vacating.
Yep.
And so this, if you come out of here, you'll have to make the right because this is where the roundabout or cul-de-sac is, and the new parking area is as well. But we've talked about this, a number of times in every one of these apartment multifamily housing projects. Multifamily is a residential use. It has very little increase to the AM and PM peak traffic counts. And so, with apartments, people tend to come and go at all different times of the hour of the day and night. So you don't really see those increases in the AM, PM peak trips that cause issues at these types of intersections. And again, this is an infill project. All the public infrastructure is fixed. The blocks are set and fixed. There's not really a whole lot you can do about the fact that 40th Street jogs like it does without, condemning a whole lot of people and straightening out that intersection, which is way beyond what this project is able to do, sitting there on Dodge between 39th and then the alley, of course. So that's that issue, and I don't know if Ryan has anything else to add about that. As far as crosswalks, obviously, we think crosswalks are a great idea. If there's no crosswalks there probably should be from a pedestrian perspective, so we have no objection to that. This project, as Bridget mentioned, is multiple people have tried to redevelop this particular site. This site, from what I understand, has a lot of vagrancy. It's vacant. It lends itself to a lot of unsavory activities, and this particular development will eliminate that blight and substandard condition with this particular development. We think this is a great development for this particular location. It'll be a noticeable improvement to the area by eliminating this vacant site here. I wanted to turn it over to Larry Smith of Avant Architects because he's the architect, and maybe he can talk a little bit about the design and where his thought was on how the building was designed, and then if you have any other questions or if Ryan wants to add anything with respect to traffic, he can do that. Do you want to do that now before?
Yeah, let's as long as
Hear
we're
from
on
traffic, and then I'll turn it over to Larry to
Okay.
talk about his inspiration in developing and designing the development.
Ryan?
Ryan Haas with the Public Works Department. Just with regards to some of the concerns that were raised with 40th and Davenport, we'd certainly, with or without this project that's in front of you today, if there are things going on, if that's something that the the citizen who testified would want to reach out to us and give us more information, and we can certainly look into that. And I don't know what the potential solutions could entail, whether that be enforcement, working with the police, or if there's something else that could be done at that intersection, because certainly we don't want people to drive the wrong way and use that intersection in a way that they're not supposed to. So without respect to this project, that's certainly something that we could evaluate and look into further. Certainly there will be a change to traffic patterns resulting from the proposed project. The vacant land use going to 136 multifamily units will have a traffic impact, and we assess that and certainly acknowledge that will be a change to 39th Street in Davenport, but certainly well within the parameters of what we would expect to see on a residential street. So yeah, just to kind of agree with Larry, anyone who would generally want to go west on Dodge, we foresee hopefully that they would use 39th Street in Davenport to then backtrack a block to 38th Avenue to make a right turn, or even a couple of blocks to get the signal at 38th Street and Dodge. As far as pedestrians, we'd certainly encourage, we feel the safest place to cross Dodge would be at one of the marked crosswalks at the signalized intersections where we have pedestrian signal heads, and we can give priority to the pedestrian at those locations, either at 40th and Dodge or at 38th Street and Dodge. And I wanted to make myself available if the board members had any other questions.
I think, well, I was just, when we were upstairs, Ryan, you kind of showed us with your pin, maybe for just Jacqueline's, for her, if, let's say that middle building there on 40th Street, when you were talking about how they got to get out, they got the diagonal parking, if they're going to go west on Dodge or something, how they would get out of the area. No, the next building, to the west,
Here?
There you go, yeah.
Yeah, so this building has currently alley access. Their stalls here on the south side of their building are striped such that they have to use their driveway one way and then egress to the alley here. So the proposed project would vacate this segment of the alley and remove that pavement. They would still have, this building here would still have the ability to go either north through the rest of the existing alley, or along the north side of the proposed project here. One of the conditions of approval is that an access easement be granted to connect the alley right-of-way here to the new cul-de-sac here on 39th Street. So they would still have access to the street network and going north to Davenport from those points.
Yep. And then we talked about the house that's down on 39th and Dodge, that street is vacated, but they have an easement going north on 30th.
Yeah, that's correct. So again, the cul-de-sac, which is roughly in this location right here at the northeast corner of the proposed project, one of the conditions of the vacation in this area here would be that an easement remain in place for roughly the north half of the vacated area, so that this property on the corner there at 39th and Dodge would still by right be able to ingress and egress through this vacated area to get back to 39th Street.
Okay. I hope that answers for Jacqueline, where traffic is going to go. So, all right, thank you, Ryan. Unless somebody has a question for him. All right, then who was with your team? Larry Smith, did you want to come up?
Yes, Larry Smith of Avant Architects.
Since we closed public hearing, we have to call you up, Larry, so.
Larry Smith, Avant Architects, 3337 North 107th Street. When we first began looking at this site, this is a difficult site. As they mentioned, it's been vacant for a number of years. There's a fair amount of grade change across this site, and we are sitting close to what we believe are some pretty nice structures, mostly to the east of us. I can actually see in the not too distant future this kind of development continuing along Dodge to the west. But with the vacation of 39th Street, this piece right here, we've essentially left in place the street of 39th Street. It'll get replaced with new paving. We've got our parking there, and then we've been able to introduce some landscaping there. So for the house to the 39th and Dodge, we've tried to be sensitive, tried to keep the building as far away from that as we can. And there's some things about the street and the parking that are similar to what's there today. With the massing of the building, it is 136 units. It's a larger structure. Again, as the grade steps down to the west is where that will be a little taller elevation. We've tried to introduce, we're using 2 different kinds of bricks. We have a lot of nice windows for great views. On the west side, the building actually steps, so that massing moves a little bit. And then we're trying to, with some of the outdoor living spaces, tried to let the elevation move a little bit. And we've really tried to keep it simple so that we're not competing with something flashy and gaudy and trendy with what we have in their neighborhood. So that was the approach. We think for a larger structure, it's doing a pretty nice job. And we think with the enhanced landscaping on the east and on the west where we vacated the alley, and then the improvements along Dodge Street will really change the character and help it blend in there as best it can for the size of building that it is.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any additional comments or questions from the board? Eric?
Yeah, so, this is a great example of a larger multifamily structure that TOD code envisioned when the orbit line went in and when we updated our zoning code to account for transit-oriented development. There's only a few modifications that are required with the PUR, but by and large, it's nearly fully compliant with the TOD code or the zoning code. So we appreciate working with the development team, and we think it'll be a great reuse of a site that's been neglected for 15 years and been a problem longer than that. I don't have much to add, so unless you have any questions, I can go through the 3 recommendations separately.
Yeah, separately.
Agenda item number 7 is the TIF component. Staff recommends approval.
Do we have a motion? Second. We have a motion and a second. Debbie, will you record the vote?
Rosacker,
Yes.
Franklin. Yes. Moore. Yes. Mr. Chair,
Yes.
approved 4-0.
Agenda item number 15.
For 15, so this is the plating component as well as the rezoning and the repeal of the ACI. The ACI is being repealed because it is repetitive to the TOD zoning, so that overlay is no longer necessary. I will point out that the vacated 39th Street and alley on the west side, that will be a future planning board initiated vacation just because it's all being proposed to go to this development. It could not be done as part of the plat, so that'll be a future item on a planning board agenda. Staff recommends approval of the rezoning from R7 and GC to TOD2 MX, approval of the repeal of the ACI 2 overlay district, approval of the preliminary plat subject to the 5 conditions in the report, approval of the final plat subject to conditions of preliminary plat approval, and submittal of an acceptable final subdivision agreement prior to City Council.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion for the approval of rezoning from R7 and GC to TOD2 MX, approval of the repeal of the ACI 250 overlay district, approval of the preliminary plat subject to the following 5 conditions, and approval of the final plat subject to the conditions of preliminary plat approval and submittal of an acceptable final subdivision agreement prior to forwarding to the City Council.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Debbie, will you please record the vote?
Franklin.
Yes.
Moore. Yes. Rosacker.
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
approved 4-0.
And then agenda item number 22.
Yeah, so this is the PUR. Staff recommends approval of the PUR overlay district subject to providing final acceptable PUR plans prior to City Council.
Do we have a motion?
Before I do that,
Go ahead.
I just want to make a comment. Happened to be working with one of those other developers in the past, 6, 7, 8 years ago, whenever it was. And this is a confluence of 2 things. I think it was just a good team with the development team and with the planning department coming up with a resolution to that quarrelsome site. It's a very valid site to have redevelopment. It's been a challenge. And then I think also the TOD was another benefit to this that made this work. So my commendation to everybody for that work. So I'll make a motion for the approval of the PUR planned unit redevelopment overlay district subject to providing the acceptable PUR plans prior to forwarding the request, to council.
We have a motion and a second. Debbie, will you please record the vote?
Moore. Yes. Rosacker?
Yes.
Franklin? Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Approved 4-0.
Thank you.
Okay. Nice job, guys. Agenda item number 8, case C3-22-33. Applicant, Planning Department on behalf of the City of Omaha, request approval of the Schooler Office Building TIF redevelopment project plan, location 2027 Dodge Street. Don?
Yeah, good afternoon, Don Seaton, Omaha City Planning. And it is right on Dodge, right across the street from the Central High School project site. It's actually a pair of lots, which includes the parking lot on the south side of the site, and then this parking lot and the Schooler building itself. This is a rehab project. They're going to do a comprehensive rehab of about 80,000 of the building, which has about 87,800 square feet of space to be rehabilitated. They're going to be converting an existing gymnasium and event space within the building to leasable office space. So that's about 27,300 square feet there that is not in use as office now, but will become leasable office space. The building is a nice vintage building. It was built in 1922 as a VFW hotel. It doesn't have any official historic designations, but it is eligible to be designated as a historic building. The applicants are proposing very minimal changes, almost no changes to the exterior, with the exception perhaps of here's the building there, the south facade, a few windows back on that side. They will also be reconstructing the south parking lot so that it meets city standards and will be much more aesthetically pleasing with landscaping and a much more contemporary looking surface parking feature. Anyway, the developer is KRF Dodge LLC, managed by the Kentro Group, and Chris Viscardi is the manager. Total project cost is $8,380,000. They're asking for $1,405,000 in TIF support, and this project meets the city's criteria for the TIF program. It's appropriate land use for the area, and it complies with the goals of the city's master plan, and we ask for your approval.
Okay, thank you, Don. Any other proponents?
Thank you. I'm Chris Viscardi with the Kentro Group. Address is 1509 York Street, Denver, Colorado. Thanks, Don. So we were really excited. This is actually our first project coming to Omaha. We've been trying to get to the market for about 5 years. This project came available, and we've been pursuing it since last summer. It's mixed use. It's a little complicated if any of you have been in the space. You have a gym that's kind of subterranean, then you have the event space, and then there's another event space, and then there's office. So it's one of those projects that you're going to peel back an onion, and it'll be kind of surprising what we find as we kind of dig through this. But our strength normally is coming in and revitalizing old buildings and really converting and find a best use and try to keep that historic feeling to it, but then modernize it. So we feel like this really hits that home. And Schooler moved out in November, so it's now vacant. So I think for us, we want to be able to come in, have the right amount of capital, and reposition and restabilize it. I think it offers a unique piece that there's not a lot of office. I felt like I've toured all the office in downtown, and this offers something a little different. You're not in a high rise. You're kind of feeling like you're in the neighborhood. You're not in Old Market, but you're right off the interstate and almost next to Midtown. So I think it'll really offer variety for when everybody gets back to office, they'll come and hopefully be our tenants here. So with that, I'll be here for any questions, and I'll be available.
Thanks, Chris. Any other proponents? Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Comments, questions from the board? Eric, did you want to add anything?
Recommend approval.
Do we have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion, second. Debbie, will you record the vote?
Rosacker?
Yes.
Franklin? Moore? Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Approved 4-0.
Our next item is 16 and 23. We'll take them together. They were on consent for layover, and they were removed. Item 16, case C10-22-46, C12-22-48, applicant 192 Honeysuckle LLC, request preliminary and final plat approval of Lincoln Station, a minor plat inside city limits with rezoning from AG to DR and R6. Portions of the property are located within the flood fringe and floodway overlay districts. Location northwest of 192nd Street and Honeysuckle Drive. And 23, case C11-22-47, excuse me, applicant 192 Honeysuckle LLC, request approval of a planned unit development overlay district. Location northwest of 192nd Street and Honeysuckle Drive. Is the applicant here?
Kyle Hazy, 10909 Mill Valley Road, with ENA Consulting Group, representing the applicant. We are proposing a multifamily project on the northwest corner of 192nd and Honeysuckle. We have 185 units proposed for the lot. We are working with the city planning department to meet the recommendations that they had within the report. So we'll continue working forward with them. With that, I'll make myself available for any questions that either the board or people in the audience have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. Any other proponents? Seeing none, are there any opponents? Come forward, sir. Give your name and address, please.
Good afternoon, Alex Edwards, 19158 Honeysuckle Drive. One of the last few people here today. Yep. I received a letter in the mail because of my close proximity to the development. I think I'm the only single-family residential home within 300 feet of the proposed development. I'm directly across 192nd to the east.
You're in Silverleaf?
I'm in Silverleaf.
Okay.
I'm the first house in Silverleaf.
Gotcha.
We had our Silverleaf HOA meeting last week, and this was a topic of discussion. Most neighbors would probably prefer most neighbors in Silverleaf would probably prefer a little bit different neighbor than a almost 200 unit apartment complex. But I think my concern and most of the neighbors' concern is the traffic and the situation at the intersection of 192nd and Honeysuckle. I look out at that intersection from the front windows of my home, and I hear every day the honking horns and the screeching tires of traffic between say 7 or 7:30 and 8:30. I believe largely due in part to the high school, Elkhorn High, which is further west down Honeysuckle Drive, along with the folks that are exiting West Dodge Village, Silverleaf Estates, folks trying to get out onto 192nd Street. 192nd Street, as you know, is a major north-south thoroughfare here. I think a lot of us had hoped that traffic would ease up on that a little bit as the overpass was built over on 180th to go across the old Lincoln Highway and the railroad tracks and stuff. That does not yet connect up to Maple Street. So hopefully there still is some hope that we'll see lower traffic on 192nd Street. But this is just a two-way stop. And as a user of that two-way stop every day, I can speak to the mass confusion of people that don't seem to know what to do at a two-way stop. There's no light there, obviously. It's not a four-way stop, and I think people have forgotten how to use a two-way stop. There's a left turn lane out of Silverleaf Estates to go south. There's a left turn lane in 192nd to turn would be east into Silverleaf, or northbound. There's a left-hand turn lane to turn left onto Honeysuckle Drive. There is not a turn lane for southbound 192nd Street to turn right or turn west onto Honeysuckle Drive. And just seeing for the last 6 years I've lived there, just seeing the volume of traffic at this intersection, the confusion about how to manage the stop. I think there's a lot, and again, hearing screeching tires and honking horns every morning, probably related to the inability to understand the two-way stop. There's a fair amount of traffic here. The speed is 45 miles an hour. Coming down the hill from Dodge Street down to the bottom of the valley here at Honeysuckle Drive and on to Old Lincoln Highway in Blondo. It's actually difficult to maintain 45 miles an hour going downhill there. You got to brake pretty hard as you come down to 100 or down to Honeysuckle Drive. I have concerns, and I speak for virtually everyone, if not everyone, in Silverleaf Estates that having nearly 200 new residents on this corner of the intersection, that unless something changes there with turn lanes, traffic light, or something, just anticipate more issues at that intersection. Thank you.
Okay, going to close the public hearing. Ryan Haas, would you come down, Public Works? Just quickly. I forgot my.
Ryan Haas with the Public Works Department.
Just quickly go over what we were talking about in the pre-meeting about your study on the intersection that Alex is concerned about and the future overpass.
Yeah, sure, and I apologize, I missed the first part of the testimony. I stepped out to talk to Jacqueline from the last case.
Okay.
But as far as the traffic at 192nd and Honeysuckle, the city is waiting for the Douglas County 180th Street project to be completed, which is anticipated to occur this year. Once that happens and 180th is essentially the widening is completed generally between West Dodge and West Maple, we will then wait for traffic patterns to kind of balance, and then the city will go out and study this intersection, 192nd and Honeysuckle. And we will evaluate it to see if it meets the criteria for traffic signalization. We can include the impacts if this project here before you today is not completed at that time. We can include those impacts by calculating the number of trips and adding those to the volumes that we observed this fall. And then if we'll just have to see what the results of those studies are as far as whether signals can be supported at that intersection. Long term, the Douglas County had a study completed in 2003, which identified the bridge that just was constructed on 180th, generally between West Dodge and Blondo. And it also identified a preferred alternative for this location here on 192nd Street, which would go running north from Honeysuckle, would go up and over the creek, the Old Lincoln Highway, and the railroad tracks. And actually, the preferred alternative would go over Blondo Street and then come back down and tie in. I believe it's Grant Street that tees off to the west there. So there's no project identified at this time. It is known as a need, and hopefully at some point we can pursue that in the future as funding becomes available.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you.
That intersection, I know a little bit about what Alex is talking about. I been through there in the morning. I avoid it. I don't like going that way just because of the stacking, and especially if a train's on the tracks, it makes for a mess. But the city is looking at this, Alex. So, any other comments or questions? Okay, from the board. Eric.
Yeah, so we obviously do have it on for layover. There are a few items with the PUD plan specifically that we would need some small modifications regarding building height and one of the setbacks of the southeasternmost building. But the project, is programmed to meet the density of the R5 district, which is considered the master plan low density residential. So it's the zoning to the R6 to allow the multifamily type building, but at the lower density of the R5, and really the most restrictive of the regulations between those two districts. So it's limited in height to 35 feet, such as any other single family home would be that has low density zoning. So, we will continue to work with the applicant. I believe these can be, modifications can be made fairly quickly and maybe even back on the board next month. Alex, just so you're aware, or if anybody else, If it is back on the agenda next month, we do not send out new notifications. So you can always check with staff if it is on the agenda, but just wanted to point that out. So.
Or you could get on the website.
Yeah, yep, or on the website, we would have our agendas posted. Our next deadline is next week, so it might be a week or two until the agenda's out there, but you can definitely check back with us. So, that being said, for agenda item 16, staff recommends layover.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to lay over.
We have a motion and a second. Debbie, please record the vote.
Sydney?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Frank. Rosacker?
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Approved 4-0.
And agenda item number 23.
Staff recommends layover.
Do we have a motion? We have a motion and a second. Debbie, please record the vote.
Franklin?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Rosacker?
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Approved.
I think that's the last agenda item. Is that correct? Were you here? Okay, I'll let Mike, okay. Do we have a motion on the minutes for last month, the public meeting and the pre-meeting?
Motion to approve last month's pre and actual meeting.
We have a motion and a second. Debbie, please record the vote.
Franklin?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Rosacker?
Yes.
Rosacker, yeah. Mr. Chair?
Yes, me, yes.
Okay, approved 4-0.
Okay, do we have a motion for adjournment? We have a motion. We have a motion and a second. Debbie, please record the vote.
Franklin?
Yes.
Moore? Rosacker?
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Okay.